Welcome back for another flight computer video. Today we are looking at the True Airspeed Computer type G-1. So this device comes from the Silcox Miller Company, and based on the order date, it appears to be from 1942. The construction of the device is single-sided, so there's nothing on the back of this device. And it's black plastic with the luminescent paint that we saw on the 5835, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So let's walk through the scales of what's available on this flight computer. First thing to say though is it really is a specialty flight computer. This isn't used for wind triangle problems. It wouldn't be used for time, speed, distance problems. It's just used to calculate the true airspeed. And so if we go from the outside of the device on in, we've got a true airspeed scale here on the outer scale, which goes from 120 miles per hour to 900 miles per hour. We've got an indicated airspeed scale inside of that, which goes from 100 miles an hour to 600 miles per hour. On the movable wheel, we have pressure altitude in feet, which goes from minus 1,000 feet around to 50,000 feet. And we have an air temperature scale here, which goes from minus 70 degrees Celsius up to 40 degrees Celsius. And we also have a nice cursor with a special shape, which we'll talk about at the end of the video, which is helpful for aligning things and reading answers. So in order to calculate true airspeed, we need three inputs. And those three inputs are indicated airspeed or calibrated airspeed, which we'll mention the difference here in just a second, our pressure altitude, and our outside air temperature. So let's go ahead and actually put these things into the device and calculate true airspeed. So something else that I really like about this device is it's self-documenting in terms of the instructions for use are right there on the device itself. So it says to set the pressure altitude against our calibrated indicated airspeed in miles per hour. So indicated airspeed is 140 miles per hour. So I set that right there. And then I have to align the inner wheel with our pressure altitude, which is 25,000 feet. So we've aligned those two numbers right there. And then we set the indicator on the true, or on our air temperature, which is minus 30 degrees. So I align the cursor here with minus 30. And then under the, then we read the true airspeed in miles per hour on the VT scale under the indicator. So the VT scale is here on the outside, and that looks like my true airspeed in this particular case is about 209 miles per hour. So that's how the device works. And you might be asking, don't E-6B flight computers handle this same calculation? And the answer is yes, they do. They just do it in a slightly different way. And the question is it a better way? Is it more accurate? So let's actually do that same problem here on an E-6B style computer with the airspeed calculation. So this one comes from the same era, same construction materials, 1944. And what we do on this device is we don't set up airspeed against pressure altitude, we set air temperature against pressure altitude. So here we'd be setting minus 30 degrees Celsius against our pressure altitude of 25,000 feet. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got 25,000 feet right here, and I've got minus 30 degrees Celsius right there. Now what I'm gonna do is read on the inner scale, my calibrated airspeed, and on the outer scale, my true airspeed. So calibrated, I had 140 miles per hour. And outside of that, you can tell I've got a value here that looks like it's probably 211 miles per hour. So definitely in the same ballpark as this answer right here. Now, one of the advantages that I see to the G1 is that typically your airspeed and your pressure altitude will remain the same throughout a flight. And what's most likely to vary is going to be the outside air temperature. And so if the outside air temperature here went from minus 30 to say minus 10 in flight, all we would have to do is just move the cursor to minus 10, and we would read our new true airspeed, which would be about 217 miles per hour. Or likewise, if it got colder and was say minus 50 degrees at altitude, well, that's going to make our true airspeed about 200 miles per hour. So it's quite nice that this cursor can just handle the temperature changes for us, whereas on the E-6B computer, if the temperature changes, then we have to actually slide the whole device to set, say, -10 against 25,000 feet or -50 against 25,000 feet. So a slight difference there. Now, clearly, the G1 computer is bigger. And so you might be thinking, well, this must be more accurate in some sort of way. But if we look at the gauge markings here, that's not what we see. We've got gradations here for true airspeed every 5 miles per hour. So we've got here 200, 205, 210, 215, 220. And if we look on the E-6B, we've actually got more gradations. So we've got the ability to read in between those marks a little bit clearer on the E-6B. So the question is, with this bigger device, why did they not take advantage of that and sort of mark this in, I don't know, every mile per hour as opposed to every 5 miles per hour? And for that, I really think it has to do with the instrumentation at the time. So if you were actually flying in a World War II era plane, how good of the information could you actually get into the airplane? Like, how accurate was the airspeed indicator? So I've got a picture here of an airspeed indicator from a B-17. And if you look, the gradations of this are in first every 50 miles per hour, sorry, every 5 miles per hour. And then as we get above 200, then they're in every 10 miles per hour. So that level of accuracy, or that, yeah, that's what I meant to say. That level of accuracy matches what we see here on the G1 computer. So perhaps whoever designed this computer thought, well, it doesn't have to be more accurate than that because that's as good of the data that we can get from our instruments themselves. So that covers pretty much everything to say about the G1 computer, other than we haven't looked at what I think is the coolest part about this, well, actually two things. One would be the cursor. So step 4 here on the instruction says, use the notch side of the indicator to mark airspeed meter calibration on the blank arc. And so what we could do here is, if we knew that our airplane had a significant difference between indicated airspeed and calibrated airspeed, which is, calibrated airspeed is our indicated airspeed corrected for errors of the instrument. So if we knew that when we were doing, say, 160 miles per hour, at least indicated, that actually meant that we were doing 155. What we could do is we can make a mark here on this blank scale. I'm just doing it here with pencil. I hope it shows up. So I've made a mark right there. What I could then do is I could use that marking as my, to set the scale for 160 calibrated. So it allows me to calibrate, or put my calibrated airspeed directly onto the blank arc that's here. And we can see that this device was set up to be used on a specific airplane. So this would remain in the airplane and it would be calibrated for the instruments that were on that airplane. But what I really love about this is I do love this notch cursor. It's a pretty unique design to have that and to be able to use that to mark spots on the inner blank scale. The other thing that I love about this flight computer is that it glows in the dark. And so just as we did with the 5835, we'll turn out the lights and we'll see what this actually looked like on a dark night. So in a dark cockpit, if we flip on the black lighting, this is what the G1 True Airspeed Computer would have looked like. It's got that nice fluorescent glow to it, which is very similar to the way that the 5835 looked. And if you're interested in this device, there's another video that covers the different variants of that flight computer. So that's all for this video on the G1 True Airspeed Computer. Thanks for watching.